All right, we're going to start. Hello, my name is Kristen Rinaldo. Today I life pledge to live the rule of life for the Confraternity of Penitents.
My name is Ben Rinaldo, and I also pledge today to live the rule for the rest of my life.
We were asked to speak today about our conversion and also a little bit about how to talk to others about the faith. Hopefully, in listening to our stories, you will get some ideas about how to speak with others about the faith, since we have been through many different stages in our walk with the Lord. We will also share some resources that we have discovered throughout our own spiritual journeys. I am a cradle Catholic, but as children, my brother and I only completed religious formation through First Communion. My father's parents insisted that any children that my parents had would be raised Catholic if they were to be married, since only my father was Catholic. First Communion was as far as I went, and I had nothing much in the way of religious education for the rest of my childhood. I reverted later on in life, going through RCIA in 1999, and then after falling away, reverted in 2007.
I'm a convert and a revert to Catholicism. I was raised Methodist and came into the church at Easter Vigil in 1999 after having attended RCIA. After we were married in 2000, we stopped attending Mass, and I came back to the faith in 2007.
After my first communion in second grade, my family only went to Mass on Christmas and Easter, and when my grandparents requested us to meet them. My father was raised Catholic, but not practicing, and my mother is Methodist. Religion was not talked about very often in my home, though it was given. I was given some Catholic books when I was little. I saw my grandparents pray the rosary often, and they had religious items in their home. You turned it too soon. Go ahead. That was about all the exposure to religion that I had. It was certainly not part of everyday life.
Kindergarten through middle school, I attended Sunday school and youth group in the United Methodist Church. As I got older, I had more and more complicated questions from my Sunday school teachers, and this resulted in my not being allowed to ask questions anymore by the time I was in youth group. In high school, my mom gave my brother and I the choice to join a Sunday morning bowling league or go to church. We, of course, chose bowling. And after that, my church attendance fell off to Christmas and Easter, and I no longer identified as a Christian, and I became interested in New Age spirituality.
By the time I started high school, I was agnostic at best and began looking at into New Age practices. I started dating Benjamin at age 15, and we both were very interested in anything. Oh, blank page. Oh, a bunch of blank pages. Anything supernatural, as long as it did not involve Christianity. As teenagers, Ben and I became inseparable. In our late teens and early 20s, Ben became interested in Christianity. He was and is always on the lookout for what is true and right and willing to explore their belief systems, while I was okay with whatever form of spirituality said the things that I wanted to hear. I was not really interested, but I would go to church with Ben if he wanted.
It was a book that opened me up to Christianity again. I became interested in the Left Behind series and started to read them. It was in the pages of those books that I saw people living as Christians and incorporating their faiths into their lives. Around the same time, while channel surfing, I came across EWTN. EWTN was on channel 44, and HBO2 was on channel 55, so it was easy to accidentally tune into it. I was not looking for a Franciscan nun talking about God at the time, but there was something about Mother Angelica that kept drawing me back to EWTN again and again.
At some point, Ben decided that he wanted to do RCIA, and so I went along with him since I had never been confirmed. Our RCIA program was very interesting and unfortunately very lacking. Our small class would meet with the priest, and he would give us little talks. He had some very non-traditional beliefs that we were more than happy to go along with. If he had his way, there would be no kneelers in the church, no confession, and he thought that what went on in the bedroom between a husband and wife was between them and God with no guidance from the church. We were not called to change in any way, and that was what we wanted to hear.
We were both confirmed at Easter Vigil 1999, and we were married in 2000. A short time after marriage, we stopped attending Mass, unless we took Kristen's grandmother when we were home from college. During the majority of my academic career, I identified as agnostic and would actively resist any pull I felt towards the church for the rest of my time in college. I remembered suggesting to Kristen that we go to the Newman Center for Sunday evening Mass a time or two, but she was not interested, and I did not push the issue. While I was an English major, I could not completely get away from Catholicism because I kept taking courses in medieval literature, history, and languages. Almost everything we read had something to do with the church. Religion permeated the time period that I fell in love with, and this was a good thing because it wore at me. I remember my professor of Anglo-Saxon lamenting that she could no longer assume that her students would be biblically literate enough to recognize the passages of the Bible that we were translating from Anglo-Saxon into English. And she would do this because she wanted people to have something familiar to translate, so once you started getting a few things, it'd come easier to you. This led me to take a course in the Bible as literature, and even in a course about Europe between the interwar period, I ended up doing my final research project about British Roman Catholic chaplains and their memoirs written during World War I.
We finished our degrees from the University of Buffalo. We both majored in English and library science, and I was the first to get a real job. We were living in Buffalo, New York, and the company was in Niagara Falls, so we did not have to relocate. After a few months, they were looking for people to move to Nashville, Tennessee, to move some of the work down there. They gave me an offer that I could not refuse, so off we went. We were truly on our own for the first time when we moved to Tennessee. Shortly after moving, Ben was hired at the same company in the same department. We didn't have much money, and we didn't have any friends. When we went to work, one of the first things they asked was, "What church do you go to?" I was not prepared for this because in New York, you do not talk about religion in the workplace. I would tell them I was sort of Catholic, and that would bring up even more questions because they wanted to have all their questions about Catholicism answered. We had moved at the end of October 2007, and by that December, we had found a Catholic church to check out. We were having culture shock and needed something that was familiar. The cathedral in Nashville is a beautiful church, had beautiful music, and had adult education classes in between masses that we began attending. I really knew nothing about Catholicism, but what I was learning was fascinating.
One Sunday, Kristen saw in the bulletin that there was a men's conference coming up, and she sarcastically said that I should go. I am a contrarian by nature and took it as a challenge. I had no idea what I was going to experience. There were a variety of speakers, and the last one before lunch was Father Larry Richards, giving his talk on confession. As I listened to Father Larry, it dawned on me that I and Kristen had not been living right at all. First off, I had never gone to confession, and had been receiving communion at every Mass we had attended. And the list grew and grew. So I went to confession and told the priest everything that I could remember. I bought some of Father Larry's talks after lunch, and when Kristen picked me up from the conference, I said that we needed to listen to the CDs because we had really messed things up.
A few weeks later, I went to my first confession in 15 years at the women's conference in the same church in Franklin, Tennessee. I nervously wrote up a long list of all my past sins so I wouldn't forget any. There were a lot, and I was nervous. When talking with Ben later, I found out that he and I had confessed to the same priest at the different conferences without planning it at all. Father Bevington. We began listening to Catholic Answers, Catholic podcasts, and Catholic radio and started to learn more. I joined the choir at the cathedral and sang beautiful music. I also became involved with the Catholic young adult group at our church and helped organize activities for our group, even though I was still learning about how to be Catholic. In Nashville, it was pretty easy to find people to meet up with because everyone is a transplant. Plus, there are not a lot of Catholics in Tennessee, so we tended to stick together. While in Nashville, my non-Catholic friends kept asking questions about Catholicism, and I kept having to learn more to answer those questions. Through my constant searching, I came to understand and truly believe in the true presence of the Eucharist. One of the first times I experienced this true feeling of belief was at a worship event with Matt Maher, a Catholic musician. There was prayer and adoration, and I could feel the love for the Lord in that room. I began to feel it too. It was one of the first times that I had seen a group of people so in love with the Lord. I discovered that I too had a flicker of that flame in my heart. God's love for me was right there in front of me if I would just accept it. My head was telling me that all of this made sense, but my heart was being stubborn.
Our reconversion was not easy. We had to change many things in different areas of our lives. We'd been living like pagans since before we started dating in 1995. It was not an easy process, and there was a lot of waffling back and forth, but we are here to stay. While in Tennessee, I became interested in the Bible, and a couple of my friends and I started a men's Bible study that lasted right up until we moved to Fort Wayne. So that was like a few years, and we used to meet in like random bars and stuff. And one place that was our regular the music became more offensive every week we were there, and then we adjourned to our friend's house after that. During the Bible studies, we made sure to keep everything Catholic and to have the catechism and commentaries on hand. Kristen and I also started to co-lead Bible studies and small group studies about the Catholic faith.
After 5 years of living in Nashville, we were asked to move to Fort Wayne in 2013. This time, it was not quite so much of a culture shock, though we knew no one in the area. We went to Our Lady of Good Hope Church because it was small and close by, which was the complete opposite of the cathedral in Nashville. And we stayed there. We have stayed there ever since. We participated in some activities for the young adults, led Bible study at our parish, and also became involved in planning for Theology on Tap for the diocese. And we are no longer young adults, so we do not do that anymore. Also, we had babies, so it made it a lot more time-consuming. So, after years of infertility, I was able to have a baby, Gianna, in 2014. After having Gianna, we decided that even if we had doubts about religion, we would not stop going to Mass again because we wanted to be constant for our child. Our second baby, Francesca, was born in 2016. Both girls helped me to affirm my belief in God. Having children has helped me to express my faith outside of myself. Once my girls got a little older and I had to start praying out loud and explain our Catholic faith to them, I felt very awkward. I was used to reading and considering things in my head or having discussions with my husband, but to explain it to someone about God, Jesus, and the saints, when I had not done so out loud before, brought things to a whole new level. The more I did it, the easier it became, and I feel this helped me to become more comfortable talking about my faith. It has been wonderful to watch them grow in their own faith as they get older and more able to understand deeper concepts.
I have learned it is always best, always for the best, if you act on the things that you believe God is calling you to, even if they do not work out the way you are expecting them to. It is easy to only think about and fetishize an idea or a calling. It gets put on a mental shelf where you can go and visit it, but not do much about it besides thinking, maybe someday. For many years, I believed that God was calling me to the diaconate. I finally acted on it and applied to the diaconate program and was accepted. I was in the program for a year and was withdrawn. When I was accepted, I had made the decision to submit myself to the program and do whatever I needed to do. I'd be obedient to God and to those whom He put over me. At the end of my workday and the day that I was to be informed of my withdrawal, when I had a few minutes of downtime, something made me think about the Confraternity of Penitents. Kristen and I had thought about joining them years before, but their way of life seemed too difficult at the time. That day, I had pulled their website up and saw that they were still active. We had purchased the handbook a couple of years before, so when I got home, I located it and added it to my to-be-read pile, which is intimidating. Thinking that I would look at it if I had free time over the summer, but that I could not get involved until after the diaconate program. That same night, I was to meet with my deacon mentor, and he informed me of my withdrawal. I was told that I could reapply in the future. I was depressed for about a month, but oddly enough, I was not angry at God, just disappointed with myself. As part of formation for the diaconate, I've been praying morning, evening, and night prayer from the Liturgy of the Hours. I made a decision to stop praying the breviary to see if I was just doing it out of obedience or if it was something that I was being asked by God to incorporate into my life. I have since learned that this breaks one of St. Ignatius's rules of discernment of spirits, that you should not change your practices during a period of unrest. A month later, I became spiritually less restless and started praying the breviary again, and began to attend a Rekindle the Fire meeting, which is a men's group at one of the local parishes in Fort Wayne. I had missed the camaraderie of being with other men in formation for the diaconate. I also began to attend the Rekindle the Fire Bible study. It was through Rekindle that I got involved with Christ Renews His Parish, or CHIRP, the CHIRP retreat. And after the retreat, I was invited to join team and help put on the next retreat.
At the same time as all this, I was meeting with a small group of devout Catholic women and found fellowship and learning opportunities with them. I was also invited to a CHIRP retreat. After about 18 months, I was then able to join team. It was during COVID, so I had to wait my turn. So for 18 months, I waited, and then I was able to join team and help give. And I was able to give a witness at that weekend's retreat. Joining team also brought me into fellowship with a diverse group of Catholic women at different stages in their spiritual journeys.
Exodus 90 has also played a part in my conversion. I first participated in it not long after moving to Fort Wayne, when it was still just book-based, which is a while ago. It's an app now. I participated a second time in 2021 with a group of guys from my parish and 3 of my church brothers. Like everything I had done recently, I submitted to the process and have continued to do the different programs that Exodus makes available with 2 of my church brothers. These are different sets of spiritual disciplines and readings throughout the year. Each set is based around a theme. After my withdrawal from the diaconate, we decided to give the confraternity a try and submitted our inquirer applications.
We applied and were accepted as inquirers and began our formation with the CFP. Throughout our years of formation, we were slowly introduced to the disciplines of prayer, fasting, and detachment from worldly things. These practices infuse our day with God. We are able to listen and better discern the will of God in our lives and to not be bogged down by the things of the world.
Exodus 90 helped me to start daily silent prayer and doing a daily examine. It also made me aware that there is a desire in men to follow a rule of life. I found the challenge of Exodus 90 to be challenging and invigorating. But for some reason, like a program like Exodus may be too much for some people, and there is the danger that they could burn out and become spiritually discouraged. What is asked of the men is not easy, especially if you're dealing with many spiritual issues. In the program, you're thrown into the spiritual deep end and told to swim. And I saw that in my fraternity. We had some guys burn out early, and it's disappointing, but I can understand from where they were coming from that they had totally changed their lives literally overnight, and it's not an easy adjustment. And there's also women who are interested in Exodus too, and there's programs for that.
What was your favorite part? Was it the cold showers every Friday?
I didn't mind. I honestly didn't mind the cold showers, but I'm not normal like that. The formation in the CFP is gradual and over years adds more practices into your life. You slowly wade into the spiritual life, and in that way, it may not be as discouraging as I witnessed Exodus 90 being for some men. It allows you time to put down spiritual roots and discern if you want to continue or not. A lot of books about the spiritual life that I have read about talk about having a way of life, or a rule. That is, having a set prayer schedule and things that you do daily. When we first learned about the confraternity, that seemed too restrictive and that it would take up too much of our time. We submitted to the program just like I did for the diaconate, and we were willing to trust God and see where He leads us, because He knows that it is that He knows with it is that
Discerning. I don't know.
because He knows that it can lead us to heaven. Yes. I don't know what I did at that sentence.
I don't know.
I have found that praying the breviary is what God wants me to be doing after all. Praying the breviary has helped me to incorporate the scriptures into my daily life. It also joins me with the universal church because in a spiritual sense, you're never praying alone. People are praying these prayers almost continuously around the world. I have come to see these times of prayer as being related to how God intruded into human history by becoming man. At first, it seemed burdensome to interrupt my day to pray. I was especially unsure if I could do the longest office, the office of reading. And Kristen had, did we mess that up? The same reservation. Now we have come to find that it is our favorite hour to pray.
We are both still works in progress, but with the confraternity, we have a plan of life that keeps our days centered on the most important thing in our lives, God. We only exist because He wills it, and we are called to live a life that honors Him and to carry out His plan for humanity here on earth.
God's plan involves spreading the good news across the world. Talking to people about the faith can be difficult and will not always be comfortable. Some people will be angry and have preconceived ideas as to what they think the church or Catholicism is. You cannot take it personally and just have to engage with them like Jesus would. Sometimes you will have to admit that you do not know the answer to a question and have to invest the time to research the topic and then follow up with the person who has asked the question. It also helps not to have the expectations that you will convince people who are having difficulties with belief. I see myself as planting seeds. I leave their growth up to God. I may not even get a chance to water or nurture the seed because you may never see the person again. Hopefully, in our story, you heard some ways that you might be able to reach people when talking to them about God. An important aspect of speaking to people about the faith is to figure out what stage in their spiritual life they are at. You are going to have to speak differently to an atheist than to a fallen away Catholic or a Protestant because their issues with the faith are going to be different. Some people react better to some resources than others. For Kristen and I, books are an effective way to convey information. For other people, reading a book is a daunting task. We like Father Larry's talks because he tells it like it is and does not sugarcoat things. Some people would be put off by his delivery method, and so you have to know your audience.
Reaching out to people with personal invitations to talks, events, and retreats is very effective. Protestant churches tend to do a lot better with fellowship and Bible studies, and so many people are swayed to join those churches after not finding that at their own Catholic church. That personal invitation, which shows that someone cares that that the invitee is there, shows Christian love and creates a personal connection. This leads to building Christian community. Small groups are especially effective at building that community. In Fort Wayne, we are blessed to have groups like Armor of God, Rekindle the Fire, both of those are for the men, and Kingdom Builders for the women. These are great ways to learn more about the faith, but there is also a small group component that leads participants even deeper and creates small Christian communities.
Exodus is also a great resource for deepening the faith. Exodus consists of 90 days of prayer, fasting, and other spiritual practices that starts before and continues throughout Lent, ending on Easter. Again, there is a small group component that provides support and creates accountability and community. After Lent, there are additional sessions with varying spiritual exercises. Many churches have Bible studies, book studies, and adult formation classes. These are extremely helpful in learning about the faith while also building that fellowship in the parish. If you don't have these going on at your church, why not start one? The Great Adventure Bible Study or one of the other studies from Ascension Press are really great programs. And we led the Great Adventure at our parish because we asked the church secretary if there was anything going on. And she said, no, why don't you do it?
So how do you get comfortable talking about your faith to others? For us, it really helped to learn as much as possible about the faith. All those questions from the people in Tennessee really helped. It is also essential to be able to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out for you. The most important part of that is actually following up afterward.
What other resources are there to learn more? There are many great books, podcasts, radio, and television stations out there. Too many to name them all. We made a handout with just a sampling of what is out there. Two great podcasts to both recommend to others and to listen to yourself are The Bible in a Year and Catechism in a Year with Father Michael Schmitz.
All of these methods and resources are great and lead people deeper in their faith. But what about introducing people to groups like the Confraternity of Penitents? Joining the CFP is a very personal decision and is a very big commitment, but if we don't let people know that such groups exist, they will never find them. A seed planted at an opportune moment can lead someone to inquire and enter formation. This is how it started for us.
When people look at the Confraternity of Penitents, they may think it is difficult to live such a life, but sharing the benefits of living this way at the right time, such as after Exodus 90, might be the right place to plant that seed. If they are already experiencing the fruits from spiritual exercises, they may be more open to seeing what continued disciplines could do for their spiritual lives.
So we just spoke really fast, and now we're actually done with what we wrote. So I guess we can do questions and answers if you have any questions. What? Yes, we'll repeat the question, and we'll hand out. We have a handout. It's just a list of things we cobbled together. It's not an exhaustive list, but here. Answer questions.
Okay. Yes.
Got a question. With Exodus 90 being a men's group, and how were you able to separate it and do it when you got a full-time job, you're in a house full of women, and you know that they're not doing the same things you are at the same time. So how were you able to, I guess, cut out time without ignoring the family issues? I guess at the time. How'd you fit it?
So you're asking how I fit Exodus 90 in my life.
Yes.
I am really thick-headed and determined. And I see development in spiritual life sort of like exercise or physical, like learning to run, learning to walk, whatever you're going to do for exercise. And I just stuck with it. And of course, I talked to Kristen, and we planned out when I would go do a holy hour, when I would do my 20 minutes or 30 minutes of praying, whatever they ask of me. And I just sort of do my thing, regardless of what's going on. No, Kristen, do you think it affected the family life at all? Except for my meetings being gone once a week. Yeah, and you got to communicate with your spouse about what you're doing too, because there's some guys who join it and think it's my way or the highway, and they have an unpleasant experience.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Yes.
Is there a female version of Exodus 90?
What is the female version of Exodus 90? Yes, is.
Okay, so the question was, is there a female version of Exodus 90? Is not there's not like an official one that's Exodus, not through Exodus, but I think there's something called Fiat 90 or something, or Fiat. What is it? Magnify. Yeah, I think there's might be a couple of different ones that I will do maybe this year, this upcoming year, but I have not had a chance to do it myself. So yes, there's some things out there, but not. I feel like maybe they don't have like. Well, it's not as intense maybe, and I mean, I guess you could make it as intense as you want. And also, like, they don't have, as far as I know, they don't have like an app. Like now, Exodus has an app, and it's all organized and stuff. So. So the question was, what influenced us the most, despite all of our pagan influences and exposure growing up? I don't know. I think my grandparents, who are very devout, and I believe they were secular Franciscans. I think I saw that even though I was ignoring, the existence of God, basically. And then also just like, if you took a good hard look at the pagan stuff, you were like, okay, first of all, why do I have to ask for protection while I'm doing these things? Like, I don't know, just like if you look at the ceremonies or whatever, it just seemed like there was a danger element of it. And like, how is something good? Why does that have a danger element? So I don't know what it is for you.
For me, it was access to academic databases and doing historical research and finding out things like, what's her name? Murray. She was an Egyptologist. She was very influential in a lot of the goddess ideas coming out in Europe, but she got out of her bailiwick and doing her research and her publications and that stuff. And then looking into Gerald Gardner, his history, his relationship with Aleister Crowley, and that pretty much Wicca was an invention of the late 1800s, early 1900s. Probably
when it claims
to be like this eternal thing, because it's predicated on the idea of having an educated class of peasants who are able to maintain these books of shadows over centuries without having access to literacy. And so it's anachronistic in that way. So yeah, it was really academic that I got my way out of it.
And I would say I had to figure it out logically before I actually felt like I could say I believed it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I had to. I like the feeling. I'm not a super emotional person, so like I didn't have like this big emotional thing until maybe that Matt Maher concert. Like that was like probably the first time I've had like a big emotional thing, but yeah, like making it make sense in my head really helped that. So I didn't want to feel like I was being duped. Like I'm not, well, I'm not going to be one of those people that just believes because I was told to believe. So I was being proud and stubborn. So what do we see as our expectation and hope in becoming CFP members? Well, my expectation is that I will stick with it because I promised to, and my hope is that it will really lead me to be able to understand what God wants me to do, and like so I can not do what I want to do. I want to do what God wants me to do, and because we are how God does things on earth, like he uses us. And then also, I mean, that's good for you too, because you're following God's will and he wants good for you. So if you're doing what he wants, then that's going to be good for you, and lead you to heaven. So
My expectations is that I'll continue doing the things that I have been doing, like the praying, the fasting, and everything.
what's your hope?
My hope that I can continue doing them.
Well, through your lessons, you have learned that it is totally possible.
Yes.
In every
Yes,
way.
in every way. There's just excuses.
Don't make excuses.
Yeah, but seriously, that's, I don't know, like Father said, having low expectations. I have an inability to put things on a pedestal, if you know what I mean. Like, as much as I love the medieval period, I don't put these ideals on pedestals just to be admired. Like they did with, like, all the Romance literature about, like, the Virgin Mary, and they idealize, like, the Romance of the Rose and stuff like that, where it's all pretty and flowery, but then you get Protestants calling into shows like Call to Communion, nitpicking about the wording of prayers to Mary because they're using this courtly language of love, which you would use for royalty, which was appropriate for Mary. But in our time, it sounds like Mary's our everything and Jesus is doing nothing, which isn't what our prayers are saying. But the language, because of the lack of understanding of the historical context, makes it seem that way. So I don't know, I'm pretty straightforward, and I can be quite blunt. I'm more like a warhammer than a rapier when it comes to stuff in my own life.
You say it's taken you 4 years to get to this point. I'm wondering, is there going to be, do you think it's going to be a now what kind of aspect to it, or have you talked, is the group that you're friends with now, do you think they're going to be able to get you guys past it? Because there's always a carrot, right? So you've done this for 4 years, that's been your whole thing, but now you're done. I mean, you signed.
Yeah.
Let's continue.
So the question is like, what next? Basically, how do we see it going forward? So yeah, like they were saying, we're not done. We have we're supposed to be continually in formation, and I mean the everyday practices that we do are just going to lead us further towards Christ, and then the continuing formation is going to continue to form us. So it's not like you don't stop now. It's just like, maybe I don't have a deadline to turn in this lesson, or like it's more. And then also, when you're a member, you are also helping other people in formation. So that so you're building community in that way, and you keep reaffirming what you're doing, or you keep revisiting what you're doing. And then when we meet together once a month, I think that's a very important aspect, even if it has to be on Zoom for a lot of people. You're still building community, and then hopefully there'll be, as more people join the CFP, there's more local community, more people can meet, that kind of thing. So I think
You said everything for that, yeah. Yes.
So it's lovely to see your daughters here at East Haven. Are you incorporating them into your practices now?
Are we incorporating our daughters into our practices now? We talked to them about it, but
so. Not really. They're present. So I'm not trying to force anything on them. They go to Catholic school. We're spiritual, or Catholic spirituality is all throughout our home and our lives and everything. But I think of it as more like it's an example to them. Like, okay, mommy and daddy have to pray now. Okay, mommy and daddy has to go do a holy hour, like for Exodus 90 stuff. Trying to, they know, it's interesting to see them process it, because I'm like, okay, now mommy can't wear certain things, like certain colors or stripes or something. They're like, well, mommy can't wear, this is really nice, mommy. Oh, but you can't wear that. And I'm like, it's not like that. So, I mean, it's interesting. It also helps to help me figure things out, how to explain it to people, because then I have to explain it to my kids, because they're like, why are you doing this, Mom? So they're, I can tell that as we do more and more, as they see us doing more, I guess, they come to accept it and sort of understand it. So I get a lot of questions from them. But yeah, so I mean, we pray every day, and like they're in. If we're having to say like the hours in the car, because we're busy, they're there present, and so they're hearing them. So like I think that's a really great advantage. So they know what sort of at least a little bit what the liturgy of the hours is. So it's not going to be foreign. They do adoration at school, but they'll know. I know a lot of people that went to Catholic school. They have no idea what adoration is, and I'm like, at least you know what that is from school. And then you see us going to it, and you see us prioritizing it, and so and we take them to it. Yes, sometimes we're working on it. That's a work in progress too. But yeah, so it's as much. We're sort of trying to get them to do a little bit, but not forcing it on them, but like infusing it, And then we're like, well, we're not gonna buy everything that we want. We're trying to get rid of things. We have way too much stuff. There's so many people in the world that don't have things, and we just buy and buy and buy, So we did, not so much. So it's been good because then we can incorporate them in that way. But like they're not missing out on anything. It's like they do all their normal kid stuff too. So.
You were talking about developing an ability to talk to people, and talking to your children has helped that. How have your families responded, and how do you talk to them?
How have our families responded? I think my family are thankful that I'm not on some sort of hippie commune, honestly, which is the trajectory they saw me on at one point. I don't think they understand. My dad used to be Catholic. He left the church to marry my mom, who we found out when I was in my 30s that her first marriage had been annulled because he wanted to marry a Catholic woman. And my mom had no idea what the annulment was. She was strong-armed into it, and she just signed the papers and got on with it. So they don't really understand Catholicism at all. My brother had joined the church to marry a girl who had problems with monogamy. So he's Catholic in name only, but he got married at Sturgis and now is in the middle of a really weird divorce. So
And well, unfortunately, my grandparents passed away before I converted, reconverted. So I fully anticipate seeing them again in heaven, with my hope. But I know my grandmother. It was probably very painful for her to watch me, and not be Catholic, and she knew it. And also, my brother was not practicing, and now he's a deacon. So we both had our journey back and explored other things. He went and did like a lot of Eastern spirituality type stuff, and then he went to a Protestant church, and he's like, this does not feel like church, because there was a PowerPoint, and yeah. So we both found our way back. So my brother understands. And my mom is Methodist. I think she's happy that I go to church, even though she doesn't really go to church. But I think she's happy that we do stuff at the church, that the kids are in church, even if she doesn't agree with the Catholic faith. Although she has been watching EWTN, so I'm praying. Pray for her that she will at least understand. She says, I understand a little bit more about why Catholics, love Mary so much, or that kind of thing. So I'm like, okay, thank you, Mom. So it's, yeah. So, and my father passed away when he was 65, and that was, 4 years ago? Something like that, maybe 5. Yeah. I don't know how long ago it was, but it was fairly recent. And he told me he saw the bishop in the hospital and did his confession, and he was hallucinating at the end of his life. So I'm not 100% sure that happened, but it is my hope that even if he, didn't see the bishop and didn't really confess, he thought he did and asked forgiveness from God. So I pray for him all the time, and pray for him. I assume he's maybe in purgatory, and so I pray for him to get out of purgatory, that kind of thing. So hopefully at the end of his life, he sort of, understood the Catholicism thing, because we reverted before he died. So
before you even got sick.
before he even got sick. Yeah. So, any more questions? All right, go ahead.
Do you encounter many agnostics now? And how do you, that's a big question, how do you speak to them, or how do you reach?
So the question is, how do you, or we encounter many agnostics now, and how do we reach them and speak to them? So I feel like most of the time we encounter agnostics, they're either possibly family members or people at work. So it's a tricky situation. You can't really evangelize at work,
Not openly.
not openly, through words. But I feel like we show that things are important to us, or we talk about things that we're doing, as Catholics. Like I said, we're going on, what are you doing? Why are you taking a couple days off? Well, I'm going on retreat this weekend, down at St. Felix. And so that just living, our life, we're talking about our plans, like, oh, my daughter got baptized. I said, oh, look, here's a picture of her getting baptized. Like, so I show that I like to show that it's, my faith is in my life, and show that way. And also I have, I'll steal your thunder. Ben has we work together, obviously. He has a whole bunch of saints on his desk, and I have like a cross hanging up and whatever. So it's like, they don't stop us from having things. The company's Southern, so they sort of have a religious toleration, sort of. But they don't stop us from having like things out on our areas. Not yet, anyway.
Honestly, most of the people we see now are, I don't even know if they're atheists. I don't even know if they know what they are. I mean, there's so much general confusion about identity, and belief is almost beyond some of these people, because I don't know what they believe. Like, you see Wicca and stuff coming back, like in the past 2-3 years. We've seen more and more books come through. We're cataloging librarians, so we see a lot of stuff that's coming out, new stuff. And a lot of our coworkers now wearing pentacles and stuff, and I'm like, I feel like I'm back in the 90s, and I thought we were done with this. And even in like Protestantism, you see essential oils coming back, and all this stuff that was proven as hooey is back again, and it's like cycle continues. But I don't even know if we work with anybody who's, the only one woman in our department is openly Christian, and everybody else is just nothing. And I don't even know if I'd call them atheists, because I don't think they've even put that much thought into rejecting. It just sort of, they became meh. And so it's more interesting to talk to them. Like the one Christian woman in our department, she's interested in this retreat. Like, I told her I'd send her the link for the talks, because she had no idea like what Eucharistic saints meant. So I had to explain that, because she asked what the theme was. And
So she's going to see us talking about it.
yeah, that's life.
Kristen,
Yeah.
do you have a sentiment or a feeling or that perhaps your grandmother was praying for you at that pivotal time in your life, and the graces may have come through?
Yeah, so the question was, do I have a feeling that my grandmother's praying for me during critical parts of my life? I absolutely think she was praying for me. Like, she prayed the rosary constantly. And she lived till she was 90-something years old, 93 or something. And so she had lots of time. Like, she was stuck in a nursing home. She had lots of time to pray. She was I feel like she was, like, very infused with Catholicism. And it felt like she had a very active prayer life. So I know she was praying for my brother and I. She was definitely praying for my father. And so, yeah, I feel like it just took a while for me to accept it, like to accept the graces that came from that. So, yes, I very much feel like she like she was praying for my brother and I, and we now we are feeling the fruit. We're accepting the fruits of that, and I know she's still praying for me. So
She certainly had a lot of suffering to offer up.
she did have a lot of suffering to offer up.
She
So.
had a shattered pelvis for a year.
And then the
doctors
before the
listened to her that there's something still wrong
yeah,
with it.
yeah. So, yeah, it was a very painful time, and she was very with it the whole time. So she was very, and her husband had died, and all of her friends had died, and so she was depressed. And I was like, one of my regrets was that I was not there for her in a spiritual way when she was going through all of this. So now I pray for her, and to maybe make up for it a little bit, try and pray her out of, purgatory, that hopefully I can return the gift that she gave me. So, thanks. Yes, Madeline.
You were mentioning your people at work. I heard the comment from someone about religion. I'm not interested. Is that seem to be the attitude of a lot of these people that do it? I mean, it's like I'm not interested in cars, so I don't study about cars. I don't, I drive them and that's it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I mean, it's there. I use it. I'm grateful. But I mean, it's not my thing. Is that kind of the attitude these people have? Like, well, this is not my thing, so I'm not going to even. I mean, they don't even explore it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't explore these topics. Is that the attitude you're in for religion? Not necessarily rejection. Like, it's just like, well, indifference, I guess.
So the question was, is it, are we encountering, is it more indifference and not being interested in learning about religion rather than rejecting it? I would say definitely yes. Like, because I mean, even just me growing up, like I didn't care after once my parents were not showing me that religion was important. I didn't care about it until when you get into the new age stuff, a lot of it's about having power, like your power over your situation, power over everything, and not, it's the opposite of, submitting to God. and so that's the reason I became interested in that. And so I would say the people that I encounter now are very similar. They either they're mad at religion because they feel that it is rejecting them or the people they love, or they just don't care. And they're like, oh, well, that's great that you have your quaint little practices over there, but I'm too busy living my life and thinking about me and my busy life, so I'm not going to study that. Just like a car, like I personally don't care that much about cars, so I don't think about them too much other than when it's important to me, so I can drive somewhere.
Yeah, and I think what you said about it's just all about me is more common now, where it's my liberties trump your liberties, my way of doing this is how we're doing it, and you're all wrong, so therefore evil or whatever. And it does seem to be more like Anton LaVey's The Church of Satan and the 10 satanic commandments, which people used to go around and read them to people, and people would agree with them because they're very American. They're very libertarian. They're very about you and getting your way, you controlling people, you having power over people, just you living your life and no one can say anything against you. And it's sort of scary, and it's really interesting because they read these to Christians and they agree with them, and they're like, well, you just agree to this. And even LaVey wasn't necessarily serious in his Satanism, and there's quotes of him being concerned about the really, truly people who are truly interested in evil. For LaVey, Satan was more of a symbol for individualism and misguided sense of liberty, which is really license, than actually a deity that exists. He was more atheistic about it, and that's how a lot of the atheists I knew, or Satanists I knew growing up, were more like that. Like, it wasn't necessarily about black masses. It was more about the licentiousness they could have okayed by their philosophy that they live their life by.
Thank you very much for listening to us talk. And I hope we helped you in some way.